seeing now are Democrats who are largely united around their own bill, crafted in large part by the Congressional Black Caucus. You see House Democrats supporting it. You see Cory Booker on the floor right now pushing the Senate to act on it. Senate Republicans are not yet entirely clear what plan they'll be getting behind. Tim Scott has been the lead author of an effort to write a Republican bill here. They're trying to craft something that can get the support of majority of Republicans in the Senate and the President of the United States, who's incredibly difficult to nail down on legislative specifics. And so all of this is happening ahead of, I think, what everyone is trying to get to is a timeline of before the July 4th recess. After that, Congress leaves for a couple weeks. When they come back, they've said that they intend to be focused on the coronavirus. So there is a very narrow window to get something done here. Everyone seems to be pulling in a similar direction, but there are a lot of thorny issues that are going to have to get worked out in a very short timeline to see anything end up on the president's desk anytime soon.
Qualified immunity being one of the big sticking points.
Yeah.
Garrett, you know what? Let's listen for just a few seconds here, if we can. Don't go anywhere, Garrett. I want to ask you one more question, but I do want to listen to Senator Cory Booker for just a second. Let's listen in.
So-called controversial elements of this bill, like qualified immunity, that conservatives and Democrats on both sides of the aisle, folks from the Cato Institute, from Clarence Thomas, you see conservative organization after conservative organization say the obvious, that no one should be shielded from accountability when they are violating the civil rights of another American. We have a bill that calls for change that will protect lives and practices that have killed Americans, create accountability and transparency into departments, and make sure that no one in our country is above the law. This is not a time for half steps and half measures. It is not a time to nibble around the edges. It's not a time to find the lowest common denominator. It's not a time where so many Americans feel a metaphorical knee on the neck of justice, for us to pull our knee halfway off of that neck and call it progress. No, this is a time for us to do what is right and necessary to end the kind of violence and murder and unaccountability that we see that is too endemic in our nation. And so this is the truth. The measures in this bill will pass. Congress will one day get this right. The provisions in Justice Policing Act, I am confident that one day in this country we will ban religious and racial profiling. I am confident that one day in this country we will ban chokeholds. I am confident that one day in this country we will have a national registry of police misconduct, of police use of force. I am confident that one day no one who murders someone in broad daylight in front of cameras will be shielded from accountability on the federal level in our civil courts or in our criminal courts by impossible standards to meet. It is clear that one day we shall overcome what is now injustice, that this body will do the right thing. There will be a time in America where mental health issues will be treated with health care and not police and prisons. There will be a time in America.
We have been listening to New Jersey Senator Cory Booker there. He, of course, is the co-author of the Justice in Policing Act that was introduced last week, companion legislation in the lower chamber introduced by Karen Bass. Garrett Hake is with me, of course. Garrett covers the Hill for us. And again, we're going to hear a number of these speeches over the course of the next hour or two, Garrett. But the Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee is also holding a hearing on use of force by police later today. How does that hearing fit into Senate Republican efforts to craft their own policing reform plan?
I think you should probably look at that hearing as something that's happening in parallel to this effort. It's not necessarily a key part of this effort. Remember, you've got Tim Scott, a handful of other senators who've been essentially crafting the Republican plan. They're going around the Judiciary Committee. They have not been working through the Judiciary Committee, although Lindsey Graham is one of the senators who's been working with Scott, and he's, of course, the chairman of that body. Whether this hearing today could turn any hearts and minds, particularly among Republican senators, I suppose is the factor that might make it relevant to the ultimate ultimate decision that gets made here, but this is not a bill that's going through that committee. It's essentially something that has to get broader support than that. And frankly, the timing, again, that point of trying to get something done while public opinion is focused on this, I think prevents what we would normally see as sort of the traditional slow-moving Senate committee process here. And Craig, can I add one other thought to what Cory Booker was just talking about there?
Please.
The language of this, if you think about this in the broader context here, you heard Senator Booker saying, you know, at some point we'll get this, someday we'll have this. Part of the timing element here is if Democrats feel like the Republicans are not taking a big enough step, if they're not willing to compromise, if they're not willing to really address this problem in a major way right now, Democrats might look around and say, maybe we're going to have a Democratic Senate next year or President Biden next year. And maybe it's, you know, if we can't get the pieces we need now, maybe we have a much more favorable political environment to take this on in a major way come January next year. If Republicans...
Or maybe it's just that people like George Soros are the people that's in behind bringing all this chaos and wickedness into society over here in America, that mysteriously, all of a sudden, whenever there's a problem pertaining to the city uprising, a pallet of bricks suddenly are laying there for people to grab a hold of and to use at their own dispense. Maybe we really need to get to the core of what is actually going on here involving true justice and order for the American people. In the meantime, we've got North Korea that has just got through bombing South Korea. We've got the coronavirus that is intensifying over in China and other parts of the world, including here in America. And we've got all these other problems that we're staring down the gun at. Yes, this is and has been and will continue to be a thorny issue as long as the politicians and the preachers here in this country continue to keep waxing over, blinding people's eyes, taking stuff that needs to be addressed and should have been addressed 30, 35 years ago and sweeping it under the carpet and ignoring it. These problems will continue to escalate and continue to gnaw and dilapidate, rotten at the core that is already senselessly ruined to begin with, or broken.
Aren't willing to take the steps that Democrats think are necessary in this moment.
Garrett Hake on Capitol Hill. Garrett, good to see you back there on the Hill. Thank you so much. Let's turn to Eugene Scott now. Eugene, political reporter covering identity politics for
certain departments that do follow those practices, encouraging them to do so. And of course, it also comes up with this idea of having these co-responders, basically social workers type people to go with police officers and others when they're responding to emergencies, because they believe that can help when it comes to the mental health capacity, homelessness, drug use, things like that, as officers are responding to some of these calls. But one thing it doesn't address is really, you know, the chokehold situation. That's been a big discussion going on with Democrats.
I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. For the police department and for the police administrate over in Kenton, Tennessee, to do what they done to an innocent life, which is speaking to you right now towards trying to taint him as him being some sort of a mentally disturbed person, simply because of that individual crying out for help during the time that he was attacked by his own father, and not charging his father rightfully of trying to take his own son's life. It actually is coming back full circle in regards towards all this psychiatric stuff that has now hit the streets, of all this sickness that is not just brewing with our citizens, but obviously is brewing with our police force and our law enforcement agencies across this country. Once more, what does the Bible teach? It says that if the blind lead the blind, they both shall lead off into the ditch. Whenever you have a psychiatric community that has basically given out a red light to the heterosexuals, but given out a green light to the homosexuals and the lesbians and the transvestites, to the point that now you have the United States Federal Supreme Court that has recently, within the past 24 hours, have voted not only that it's right or it's okay to be gay or transvestite or to be a lesbian, a carpet diver, but now they actually are protecting these people to the point that if an employer finds out that this person is living that type of life, he or she cannot validate a loss of employment based around he or she being the way that they are. And you may be saying, well, what difference does it make as long as they stay on their side of the fence and us heterosexual people stay on our side of the fence? I'm going to tell you the difference that it makes. We're right now in the middle of a pandemic. A pandemic that supposedly is talking about microscopic germs that you cannot see with the human eye, but it's collapsing people's lungs to the point of having like the flu and the pneumonia at the same time. It's killing people. Over 100,000 people, 100 and something thousand people have gotten killed or died over this disease. These same people that I'm talking about that live these type of lifestyles are the very same people that prepare our food, are the very same people that breathe over our food while preparing our food, are the very same people that we have to meet and greet in the car lots, in other types of public activities as far as parks and going to carnivals and doing things out into the eyes of the general public. These are the same people that we have to swim beside in our swimming pools. These are the same people that we have to watch on TV towards two men kissing each other, or two women kissing each other, or seeing a man that wanted to become a woman, or a woman to become a man, or drag queens. These are, in fact, the very people that the psychiatric community said was okay for them to live these type of lifestyles. And now the Supreme Court is saying not only is it acceptable, but we're going to protect you because you're that way. And you know good and well that if America has done something like this, it's just a matter of time before Europe, Germany, France, England, all these other countries will follow suit. Australia, all these other countries will follow suit because of what the Supreme Court done yesterday. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to recognize your lover towards being the same-sex marriage to the degree that now you can fill out your income tax just like any other married couple, to the point that now you have the right to be able to live as any other couple. And it's another thing to do to take it a step further. So now what I'm wanting to say is this: we have officially walked off into Sodom and Gomorrah here in America, since they have passed this new federal law yesterday, the law of the land, that gives these type of people these rights. Once more, these are the very people that are driving our school buses. These are the very people that are teaching our children, that work in schoolhouses. These are the very people that we have to be associated with in one form or another, either meeting them and greeting them in a library or the public swimming pool, or at a carnival or a fair or a tractor pull. These are the same people that's preparing your food and my food that there ain't nothing that we can do about. As this disease continues to spread and absorb the people in the land. So what we have here is two different elements. We have an element that has been created by man and an element that has been created by the supernatural world. Let's wait and see who's going to win. In the meantime, just as the first 4 chapters of Revelations talks about, he who shall overcometh, he who shall overcometh, he who shall overcometh, the same shall not be hurt of the second death. So yes, we are officially living in the day of judgment. Right now, as I speak, we are officially in the day of judgment of the beginning phases of the apocalypse, Armageddon. Good luck to all of us. God loves each and every one of us. He just don't love our performances. He don't love our activities. He don't love what we are practicing our lifestyles in. And if you don't believe me, you can read the latter part of Revelations, where it talks about the things that he loves versus the things that he don't love. Laziness, cowardness, and other things similar are things that God does not love, including sexual immorality. I fear for the people, because whenever the wrath of God comes down upon to society, it comes down not only upon the guilty, but also upon to the innocent. Because the guilty has basically kept on and on and on to the point that they have forced God's hand in God doing what God is doing towards ruling them with a rod of iron. And in this rule that God rules, I guarantee you it will exceed anything that the President of the United States or any other president may share or care about. And it will exceed any Supreme Court supposedly justices that we know living in today's society are not just whenever you sit and watch a police officer being filmed take somebody's life like Mr. George Floyd. We are definitely living in perilous times, and it is the times that our preachers and our politicians have allowed to come up onto the land. Officially, we are in the last days. Thanks again for listening. Good luck to all of us. We say it all the time here at the Windmill Ministries. And shalom.